Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's tips and tricks for the month of October. These seem to come around quite often, and we're grateful that you're here and able to join us. It's just crazy how quick a month can go by, and we find ourselves doing another tips and tricks call. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join this presentation. I know oftentimes we'll throw in our invites that these are happening, but don't always discuss what they are about until you all jump on the call. So with that being said, let's jump into the agenda. The agenda is short today because we have a lot to cover about one subject, and that is galleries. But before we do, let me introduce myself. My name is Tim Sessions, the Director of Client Services, and with me on this call, I have Ryan Garcia. He will be manning the chat and the Q&A. Of course, there will always be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Let me tell you a little bit about the difference between the chat and the Q&A. If you want to chat anything directly to myself or to Ryan, we can view that. We can view it via host or panelist. But by doing so, we don't see, or others on this call don't necessarily see what the remark is. So if you have a question that you want to ask, I would ask that you ask it in the Q&A section. As you receive those answers, feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like, but if there's any sort of dialogue back and forth, my suggestion would be to chat about it in the chat. So if you have that one burning question or several burning questions you want to ask, we'll ask those in the Q&A. But then, of course, if you have any comments or feedback, then feel free to throw those in the chat. You can ask questions anonymously as well, but as we were taught in elementary school, there's no dumb questions. We want to be able to help anywhere we can. All right, so with all that out of the way, you can see on the agenda there's our audience sweepstakes. Ryan has thrown that in the chat, so now you know where the chat is. Go ahead and click that link and give an entry. At the end of this call, we do give away $100 to Amazon. So a lot of you who are returning have been fortunate enough to win. So good luck to those of you who are entering. Also, at the end of this call is a survey that's sent out by Zoom. We definitely look at that feedback. In fact, that's what guided last month's tips and tricks call. So I would encourage you to leave any feedback about this call specifically so that we know how to better serve you in the future. So we're grateful for that. Today we are talking about galleries. Then of course we'll open up some time for questions at the end, but feel free to ask questions throughout. Really give Ryan a challenge here, and then we'll announce the gift card winner. So with that being said, galleries, everything you need to know. This is putting the pressure on me because I don't want to sound like a know-it-all, but I do want to let you know that galleries is one of my favorite applications. There's so much to it, and with there being a lot to it, there might be some confusion in some spots, some questions in others, and it's my hope today that we can answer all of those on this call. But before we do, I want to know, why do you not create gallery campaigns? I know that there's people on this call who are strictly sweepstakes, and that's fine. If that's what's working for you, great. And there might be some on this call who only have access to certain applications as well, and maybe galleries isn't one of them. But I do know that the majority of our customers do have access to galleries, so I felt safe in talking about it on today's tips and tricks. But in the chat, locate the chat. That's where Ryan put the giveaway link. I just want to hear some thoughts. Why do you not create galleries? It's open season. If you have opinions about it, we would like to hear them. If you have some ideas about gallery that you feel like could benefit others on this call, I'd love to see some remarks there. I'm going to put Ryan on the spot. I'm going to ask him what are his thoughts on gallery? Go ahead and throw that in the chat, Ryan, while we discuss some of this here. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the audience admin. So we're going to take a look at that. And let me pull it up here. And here we go. Looks like we're having some great feedback in here. So we'll definitely take a look at that. Looks like you guys are throwing those in there, but no, I'm glad to see some action in there. So let's jump into a gallery. I set one up already. Well, I started one called Tips and Tricks Gallery Demo. But if you're unfamiliar with how to create a gallery, you just click the Create Campaign gallery, and you title it, and you're off to the races. So let's jump into the one that I've started. Okay. Again, we got some great feedback in the chat here. Some of it's going to hosts and panelists, others is going to everyone. If you want to share with everyone, feel free to copy and paste in the everyone section there, but this is all great feedback here. I can't get distracted by it, so hopefully Ryan Garcia, you're copying some of this down. Okay, so the first point that I want to make about galleries is there's 3 schedules. You can use one schedule, you can use 2 schedules, or you can use all 3. Your first schedule is going to be the overall schedule. So I saw a comment in there that galleries do take a little bit longer to populate, and I agree with that 100%. I would say, in my personal opinion, a gallery contest should run about a month. So let's say we want to start this one on Halloween and end it at the end of November. Let's say it's like a Thanksgiving table setting contest or something like that. So we're going to go ahead and schedule the overall schedule. That's the first schedule that I want to talk to you about. Then I'm going to jump into the submission schedule. This one is buried just a little bit, but it's under the layout editor. And by default, or actually I turned this one on, there's the checkbox that says show an entry submission button. So by clicking that, then there will be a button at the top that shows and allows people to enter their own submissions. However, you could create a gallery with internal submissions, that aren't open to the public. You could submit them internally and just have it be a gallery. Think of like a Facebook album or something like that. You could create something similar to that in the gallery app. Or in another situation, you might have a situation where you submit photos, videos, audio internally, and you just want to turn on the voting elements. We'll jump to that voting schedule in just 1 second. But by showing an entry button option, like you see here on the screen, you can then schedule it. So in this example, I want the first 2 weeks to show up, to have a button show up. So the first 2 weeks of the contest, and we'll have that close Saturday night at 11:59 p.m. And you can relabel the entry button text. So you could say, submit your place setting or something custom like that. And so while we're here, let's talk a little bit more about some features that this button can do. Your entry link type is the source is going to be from the form that is pre-populated on the gallery here. So you see that on the left-hand side, you see embedded form 1303272, source 1303272 is the source that the form will populate from. In some cases, you could actually populate that form from a sweepstakes form. You could create a separate sweepstakes and attach it to this gallery if you'd like to. The other option here is open in a pop-up. With this unchecked, then the submission button will actually redirect to a new tab. So if you want to keep everything in-house, in the same window, you can open up the submission form in a pop-up. If you want it to redirect to its own page, you can uncheck that box. There's also this option of custom URLs. You can see that deselects the source. You could then put in a URL. Let's say, I'm just going to throw in, and I know that's really small for you all on this screen, but it says audience.io. What this does is this actually hyperlinks the button to a different website. Now, the purpose of that could be endless, but let's say you just want a full landing page for the submission process, and you want that button to redirect to a standalone entry form that's on a page that's skinned with the information that you want about the contest. In most cases, you're going to keep the source as the form that comes pre-populated. So that's everything about this button. It's pretty versatile here. So you can do a lot with just that little button at the top of the submission form. Before I go any further, let's talk about the third schedule, and that is voting options. So let's say I want submissions to start in the first 2 weeks, then I want that button to disappear, and then voting starts in the last 2 weeks here. So we'll go ahead and get that scheduled out. So voting will end in the last 2 weeks of the contest. Now, something to note about voting is the form is different than the entry form. As you can see, our entry form is our standard form here, but with the voting form, we've narrowed it down to just a few important options for the voter here. So you can require certain info like first name or full name, email, phone number, zip code, and a few other things. We've added some options like a custom field. You can give that field a, this example, favorite band. If you want them to fill out their favorite band, they could type that in. And then you could also create an email opt-in checkbox. So somebody could opt into your newsletters. They could opt in to a sponsors newsletters. One thing to note about the voting form right now is it doesn't tie in directly to integrations currently, so those voter submissions would need to be downloaded and checked for those email opt-ins and then uploaded into an email form. That is something that we would like to address in the future, but for now, that checkbox, is downloaded through a CSV file. While we're here, votes per person. You can allow them to vote once per day, once per hour, or once entire contest, or as you know, you could do 10 times per day, 10 times per hour, and so forth. If you'd like the votes to display on the form itself, or on the gallery itself, you have that option. It can show the total amount, it can show a percentage, or you can choose don't show at all. Don't show is great for images that deal with certain types of content. Sometimes people do like a makeover type contest or something like that, and if it's not about the votes on the front end, if it's not important to show the votes on the front end, then I would suggest doing a don't show option there. In most cases, you will do a show amount. You kind of want to see, you want your audience to see who's in the lead or who needs to step it up. If you're doing something that has a lot of entries, I would not recommend doing show percent, because if you have a percentage spread over hundreds of photos, then those percentages become very small. Where a show percent really comes into play is something with, I'd say, anywhere from 2 to maybe even 8 photos. So if it's an internal submission type contest, like a player of the week, high school football, or a play of the week, where you're putting two games or 2 teams up against each other, then those percentages really come in handy. But if it's a ton of submissions, my vote would be to show amount. And then of course you can keep this gallery up for as long as you want. Let's say the voting is turned off, let's say the submission button is turned off, but you've extended this beyond the voting and submission. So let's say we actually want the contest to go through to December 3rd. Then you can have those votes continue to show beyond the submission and voting period. So that's what this little checkbox is for. We have a few different vote types: Facebook or email only, or anonymous. By selecting anonymous, this means that people can vote, but we track it via IP address and a cookie. So people don't have to submit their information to vote, and it gives you some additional options on that anonymous vote there. But if your goal is to collect email addresses, Facebook or email is a great option. This requires email confirmation. With this checked, this means that it will send an email to the person who is trying to vote. It'll come with a little code. They'll actually have to verify their email address before that vote goes through. This is a great way to gate off any potential spam email addresses or fake email addresses. One thing to keep in mind though is, it does add a barrier to entry, but it does ensure that you're getting valid votes on these types of contests. If someone writes in and says that they are having a hard time, they didn't receive their code, they didn't know to check their spam or junk, you can ask them as an administrator, you could ask them, what email are you trying to vote with? They give you their email address and you could actually find the code for that particular person. I don't think that it will pull anything up for me. Oh, it gave me a code that I could then enter with a valid email address there. So tim@audience.io 3AB7. So I could, you could send that back to me and I would then be able to vote. So it'll find that code for you. All right, so kind of a crash course on voting setup, entry button setup. We'll get into the form fields and kind of the anatomy of a submission there. But before I do, let's talk a little bit about the layout. We're about halfway through our half-hour mark here. As you can see, there is a lot to gallery here. So let's jump back into the layout editor. We've offered a few presets. So you can click classic, traditional, trendy, and so forth. You can also do entry ordering, so custom. You can actually drag and drop when it's set as custom. You can do newest, oldest, most votes, least votes, or random. And then we've talked about the button here, but let's go ahead and go down to the customized layout. So like I said, we've done presets, but you can make the thumbnails as big or small as you'd like them to. How many show per page is completely up to you as well. Thumbnail spacing, let's see how that operates, and the y-axis is up and down. Whoops, let's see if it'll give me that option to drag there, maybe. There we go. So the Y spacing there. Thumbnail roundness, you can make them more square or round, completely square. Then you have your theme color. So your overall theme color is going to be the color of the title of the photo that sits underneath. I'm going to make this look completely atrocious in the interest of time, but you can change your font colors. Your button colors. At the top here, our button is black. So let's say we want that to be more of a pinkish red as well. And we want our text color to be white. You see that you have the ability to really match any sort of styling or website layout that you'd like. We had somebody write in last week and they were a bit confused about this show voting buttons on preview. When you uncheck it, it removes the voting buttons, but this is only for the layout preview. So you have kind of two previews here. You have your layout preview here, and then you have your actual preview signified by the green button up here at the top. And where the confusion was lying is they thought that they were unchecking the voting option so that voting wouldn't even be a factor on this contest. Well, as you can see, I've refreshed my page and the vote preview is back here. So all this does is this just gives you an idea of what the layout's going to look like without voting, but this doesn't affect the live contest whatsoever. It just gives you an idea there. Then, of course, you have your desktop layout settings. Your container is the overall container, so that gray area, you can adjust the width and height. You can then adjust the gallery opacity, so that's the background color that the gallery is sitting on. And then, of course, you can adjust the gallery height as well, so you can move that up or down as well. So it's important to understand the real estate that you're working with on your website and adjust accordingly. Then, of course, you can uncheck the show search bar at the top of the gallery. So if you have a bunch of submissions on the live side, a search bar does get enabled, and then people could type in, you know, the title or a certain search topic and find their friend's submission there. So that's handy to have, but some people might feel like it gets in the way, especially if it's only a one-page gallery or something along those lines. So that's what this search bar at the top of gallery is referencing. Okay. All right, so as far as graphics go, you'll use the similar graphics like you would in a sweepstakes. I've received some feedback recently, you know, especially people who have to send out graphics to maybe a different department or a marketing agency or somebody who assists with graphic design. And they say, you know, why do we have to create so many graphics for these contests? And my answer to that is, if you want to use more of a header style graphic that works on desktop and mobile, that will cut down on the elements that you do have to create. So let's say I want to upload a background image here. You can't see my little pop-up, but I'm going to throw in this image here. So it populates. And as you can see, I have some work to do to get my gallery to look like it fits my graphic there. So let me adjust my thumbnail sizes. Actually, let's do thumbnails per page. We'll do 12. Make my sizes a little bit smaller there. And then adjust the gallery height so it's a little bit more buttoned up. Oh, we look good there. So looks like I'm still slightly big for my graphic here, so got to drop the container height down a little bit because I really want all these photos to sit on the page. So that looks a little bit better. Then of course we can change our background color. You know, we could match the color of the graphic, but so we have this white landing page. This is looking pretty okay. That same graphic that I use for my desktop view, I can also use for my mobile header view as well. So that's what I'm referring to when I say, you know, you could just use a header style graphic. You could do this on gallery and on sweepstakes as well. So that kind of cuts down the imagery that needs to be created for both. If you don't utilize our promo grid, then you don't have to worry about a promo grid image, but I'm going to go ahead and throw one in there anyway. This is a nice square image that populates. But the one graphic I would encourage you to use is a Facebook share image. And this will populate, you know, some nice graphics on the Facebook share and as well as the Twitter share. So if somebody shared this on Twitter, then that's the image that will get pulled in there as well. So that's how you make a nice looking gallery. Let's take a look at the preview here and see if things line up. I guess without any submissions here and my text white, it doesn't say that any images show up in the gallery, so I could adjust that as well. So let's jump back in. As you can see, you know, there is a lot of playing around with the gallery here to make sure that it looks and feels right. And I know that there is, in the interest of time, you know, there is a lot to do when building out a gallery. So I appreciate the comments that say, you know, it does take a little bit longer of a time to set up and run and administer. So, you know, maybe that's the point of utilizing a sweepstakes versus a gallery. You know, you can set those up fairly quickly and get them out the door. It doesn't take a long submission process than a voting process. But with galleries, you are creating a more interactive element. Say it's on your site or on, you know, a client site or so forth. So we look lined up okay. I'm using this text here at the top to determine that that's about where the top of the photos will sit, and we're looking pretty good there. That's the setup side of things. Jumped kind of into everything here at the top. You know, you can always add your overlay box and hyperlink something, add additional text or so forth, utilizing the overlay box here. Setting up the form is similar to what you're used to on a sweepstakes. However, you do need to map the content that gets displayed on your gallery. So we have a default setting set up, but let's just talk real quick about the submission types. You can do an image, a video, an audio file. People can paste a YouTube URL. You can pull from Instagram or Twitter. By pulling from Instagram or Twitter, though, the image already has to have the hashtag that you want to populate with. So in our example, if I posted an image before entering the gallery that says Aptivada or hashtag contest entry, then I could utilize that photo from my Instagram account to submit to the gallery. It does have to be a public account, however, so if you are utilizing this feature and someone's saying my photo's not populating or my video's not populating, that's something to consider when troubleshooting. But as you know, with our form, let's say I get to that point, I see that I can use an Instagram image, but I don't have one hashtagged. I could always go back into Instagram, add those hashtags using their edit feature, come back and then use that photo for a submission as well. So that's how we pull from Instagram. Great. So by mapping the fields here, then that's what determines how they appear on the live side. For those of you familiar with Gallery, you know, you've seen what I'm referring to here. The primary media field is going to be the image. The title of the submission is what's going to show up in this section that says preview underneath the photo. And then as they click in, they'll see the title and the description of the entry. If we don't want a description, we can uncheck that. Or if we want to make the author anonymous, we can uncheck that. But something that I want to point out here is this little drop down that says thumbnails separate. What the heck does that mean? I'm going to add an input field. I'm going to give it a file upload, and I'm going to have it be an image here. And I won't make it required for entry, but it is a good thing to have. I can connect a thumbnail field to, well, let me actually hit refresh here so it populates on my drop down. I'm going to hit thumbnail separate and map it to the upload a file field. Now, I could use a better title for this, but let me give you a real world use case for this. A few years ago, a client of ours did a junior reporter contest where they had people upload, where they had kids upload them reporting the news. They broke it out into several sections, and you know, they had kindergarten through 6th grade, then they had a junior high division, they had a high school division. We'll get into that really quick in just 1 second. So they had their video, but then they also wanted them to include a headshot. So utilizing this thumbnail separate, what that does is it allowed them to upload a headshot, and then when I click on that thumbnail, then I can view the video or the actual submission. So in the preview thumbnail, it showed their nice little headshot. They clicked in, and then they could watch the video of that individual reporting the news. If you're doing like a battle of the bands, you could title this file field, upload your album art or upload an image of your band, then you click into it and then they could start listening to the audio or watch the music video of that band. The concept around this is that, people can create nice looking thumbnails rather than it pulling from a video. The thumbnail separate generally is pretty good for something along the lines where you want a nice still image and they click in to view a video or something of that nature. Okay, real quick, submissions. The thing I wanted to talk about here is under the approved section, you see this toggle of matchups. By turning on these matchups, what you can do is assign photos to different categories. And so the voting option of those categories or of the overall gallery then applies to the singular category here. So another real world example of this is, let's say like a calendar contest where you have people submit photos of stuff they want included and you want to build out a calendar, highlighting a photo each month. So you could create a matchup for January and then, the next one would be February, March, and so forth. And so as people are submitting their photos, you could apply them to the month that photo should apply to that calendar. And so then if me as an end user voting, I could, say, I want this photo for January. I want to vote for the next photo for February. So that once per day setting on votes then applies to each category set in the matchup here. But as you receive submissions, you apply them to the category and then you can go through and vote on each category. I can show you an example of that really quick, but while I'm here, the other thing that I wanted to point out, we get this question quite often for people who run galleries. We have the Choose Winner tab. And on the Choose Winner tab, you'll see a few options. It says choose from entries, each entry weighted equally, choose from entries weighted by amount of votes, choose from voters weighted equally among individuals. So what do those mean? So by choosing from entries each weighted equally, that means no matter what, everybody who submitted a photo has an equal chance to be randomly selected as a winner. Choose from entries weighted by amount of votes. What this does is it says, okay, let's look at votes as bonus entries. So let's say I had a photo and it gets 101 votes and Ryan has a photo and it only gets 100 votes. And you as an admin click choose winner and Ryan's photo appears to be the winner. Well, he didn't get the most votes, but his odds were higher than everyone else who got less votes than him, so he was chosen as a winner. So this doesn't guarantee that the person with the most votes gets picked as the winner by utilizing our choose winner field here or tab here. One thing to remember about choose winner, it's always going to be a random selection. So that's how you randomly select, but the amount of votes gives you a better opportunity to win. And then choose from voters, that's just a way to incentivize voting. So, vote for the person who should win a year's worth of baby formula, but by voting, you could also win a year's worth of baby formula as well. So you can incentivize voting by utilizing that option. So how do we know who is the winner with the most votes? We go back to the submission tab and we do a quick sort of highest votes. That's going to bring the entry with the most votes. That's your absolute winner of the highest votes. You don't use the choose winner tab to determine that. You do that through the submission tab. So to wrap this up, I just want to show you an example of a gallery with matchups turned on and how that layout works. So I'm jumping into an old contest here. And while I do so, get your questions ready. And also, if you haven't entered the giveaway, then go ahead and enter the giveaway as we wrap up this call, as we've gone a few minutes over our allotted time here. Thanks everyone for your patience. But taking a look at this live 2022 calendar with matchups turned on, you can see that The winners have been selected. You know, here's all the rejected photos. A lot of beautiful photos here, but they were categorized in the different matchups. But you can see how January has a winner, February has a winner, March, and so forth. And you can see how many votes each one of those got as the winner. Here's an example where, you know, there were two next to each other and so forth there. So that's how matchups work. That's kind of a hidden feature that I feel gets underutilized within Gallery. But that is pretty much everything that I wanted to show you concerning Gallery. I understand there's a lot to it. Let's just take a minute or two to ask or to address any questions that may have come up. We got a lot of great feedback. I'm definitely going to go through the feedback that was shared in the chat. And of course, I'd love your feedback in the survey that gets sent out shortly after this call. So it looks like Ryan has sent out the link, and he will direct message me who the winner is. And while he does that, here is a screen of our support live chat weekdays, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. You can always email us at support@audience.io, and the phone number 801-901-2011. This information will actually get emailed to you at the conclusion of this call as well.